This is where fantasy football is won, baby. Wide receivers, let's go. We just gave you guys our tight ends, our quarterbacks, and our running back fantasy rankings. Let's keep in mind, this isn't ESPN. This is an NFL Network. These will be Steve Toro's fantasy rankings for Since the Sandbox. Okay, so I have this tiered 3 different ways. I'm going to give you guys probably about 40 names for the wide receiver position. So it's going to be less about giving you breakdowns for every single player and more about kind of talking why they're on this set of the list, this tier of the list. Let's talk about tier 1. These are your guys you know that you're drafting high are going to be, stud players in the NFL as long as they stay healthy. Starting off the list, JJ. 2, Jamar Chase. I feel like Jamar Chase could really finish the year as wide receiver 1. I have high expectations for Chase this year. 3, I have him on Ra. Look, I have him above CD. I just think that, he's not dealing with contract issues right now. Last year, he had 1,500 yards, 115 receptions, 10 touchdowns, all with a torn pec. So, give this dude a healthy pec. We'll see, how much more he's going to actually churn up. But I think CD's going to come to play. I just think the yardage is going to be significantly different from last year. I'm not expecting 1,700 from him. 5, I have Tyreek. It's no disrespect to him. I know he was on pace to have a crazy season last year. Just got to see the Dolphins continue to take another step. And I know he's going to be available for big plays, but I honestly think that there's a couple guys that could have better seasons than Tyreek this year. Right after him, 3 more guys that are going to be set it and forget it. Your top tier wide receivers. Garrett Wilson, introduction to the list. As long as Aaron Rodgers has a good season, as long as Garrett Wilson stays healthy on the field, this guy is going to be a top 7 fantasy wide receiver. Let's keep that in mind. Going to have 100-plus catches, going to have 1,500-plus yards, going to have 10 touchdowns, all while Breece Hall was there if things go right. Nothing ever goes right for the Jets, so let's keep that in mind. 7, Devontae Adams, regardless of who the quarterback's there. I'm not worried about him at all. This is a guy that if I get as my first wide receiver, I know he's going to give me 1,000 yards. Might not be crazy on the touchdowns, but I'm cool with that. Let's keep in mind, Gardner Minshew produced a great season for Michael Pittman last year. And last in this top tier, A.J. Brown. Right on the cusp. I know people feel wary about A.J. Brown. Here's my whole thing with A.J. Brown. I don't feel drastically higher about A.J. Brown than I do Devonta Smith, but I know the value that I'm getting Devonta Smith at is a lot better than where I'm getting A.J. Brown. Realistically, A.J. Brown's getting drafted round 2. Devonta Smith probably getting drafted late round 3, early round 4, and I just feel like they're going to produce very similar numbers, so I would rather get that guy that's a little bit later. Just my rationale so you guys understand why things are the way they are. Starting this next tier, Mike Evans, still a guy, as long as he's in the league, he's going to be, part of this list. He's consistent regardless of the quarterback. He's giving you 1,000. He's giving you a lot of the touchdowns, carrying the Bucs to wherever their promised land is. DK Metcalf, I think it's going to be a huge season for DK. Have him inside or have him right at my 10 for top 10 players here at the wide receiver position. Right after him, Olave. I know Olave is going to get a lot of volume there with Derek Carr. But I just think DK Metcalf has a little bit higher the playmaking ability, and call me crazy, I think I like the quarterback scenario a little bit better too. After Olave is where I have Nakua. I don't feel as strong or highly about Nakua as I did last year. Rookie bursting out to the scene. Now he's getting a little bit overvalued, very similar to Gibbs. And I actually like where Cooper Kupp is getting selected to produce, very similar to Nakua, just for a later value. So same reasoning for A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith there. Right after Nakua is where I have Nico Collins, and I'm celebrating because I got Nico Collins as a round 16th keeper. Going to choose to go forward with him. That's a great value. And look, whoever I select in the last round is not going to be better than Nico Collins. So very ecstatic about that. 14 is where I have Devonta Smith. So that's the type of conversation and value I have on him. Right behind him, Jalen Waddle. I think it's a huge year for Jalen Waddle. All we need to see from this dude is, can you stay on the field? Can you stay healthy? Can this offense be potentially built around you? That's what the Dolphins are trying to figure out right now. After Waddle, this is where I have Michael Pittman. He's a reception machine. Dying to see how this all works out with Anthony Richardson at the quarterback position and Jonathan Taylor coming into the year with no drama, no contract issues, anything like that. Call me crazy, inside the top 20. This is where I have MHJ, Marvin Harrison Jr. Look, I know it's crazy to really give a rookie wide receiver this love, this value. He's going to ball out. This guy's probably going to finish the year as a top 10 wide receiver. Depends on his health availability. Depends what Kyler Murray and the Cardinals actually end up doing. But I really think sky's the limit for Marvin Harrison. Right after him, Amari Cooper. I felt a little bit skeptical about this with the whole Brandon Ayuk saga going on. But feel very strong about this positioning here. Right after Cooper is where I have Ayuk and Debo. I'm dropping Ayuk a little bit lower than this positioning. This would have him at 19 on the wide receiver list. I think I'm taking Debo over him just because you don't know what team he's going to be on. If he gets dealt in the middle of the year or he holds out, then this selection of the top 20 wide receivers isn't going to be worth it. You know Debo's going to be in San Francisco. And look, I know that there might be a little bit more injury problems with Debo, but he gets the ball a lot. He scores touchdowns, and he's a big dude. Right after Debo, Drake London. I'm not as high on Drake London as a lot of people are. I know some people would have Drake London, above that Michael Pittman category. I personally don't. I do think Kirk Cousins is, the best passing option he's had. But still, I just think like they need another wide receiver there to make me feel a little bit more confident about that. Crazy to say this, DJ Moore right after Drake London. I think there's 3 wide receivers there, and I just don't know how to value it. This has been my toughest part is dealing with, this whole Bears scenario. I like Keenan. I like DJ. DJ just got paid. You got Rome. I just have to see it all kind of work out first. And I know I said a lot of guys before DJ Moore. He's just outside that top 20. I'm drafting him with confidence, but I just don't know if I'm taking him in round 2. I'm taking a guy like Josh Jacobs over him. I am drafting Devonta Smith over him. I'm drafting Nico Collins over him on the wide receiver perspective. But it gets interesting when you start comparing that with running backs. For DJ Moore, I think I'm taking, a Kenneth Walker over him, James Cook over him, but Kyron Williams is an interesting conversation there. Interested to hear you guys' thoughts. Let me know in the comments about your valuing and where you see DJ Moore going. Just to round out the top 25 right after DJ Moore, I have Zay Flowers, Terry McLaurin, and Malik Neighbors finishing up my top 25. Really, really feel good about those 3 guys. Think that they're valued a little bit later. That's my positioning where I would try and get my wide receiver too. So obviously not a top guy in the list, but if you get someone in this top 15 and then end up with one of these 3 guys, I feel really good moving forward with those guys being my second wide receiver. Getting to the next half of the list, this is my wide receiver 3s, your flex starters, but guys that seriously have a lot of question. I'm going to share them in order, and I'm going to talk about the tier a little bit more in depth because there's a lot of names here, but there's just a lot of questions. 26, starting off the list, this is where I have Stephon Diggs. Just don't know how to feel. You guys heard me mention Nico Collins' name earlier. Tank Dell is another name that's going to be in this conversation right here. You can't feed 3 guys 100 yards every game. It's just not going to happen. Look, I know it's a passing league, but there's just not enough ball to go around in 4 quarters. There's really not. Right after him, Cooper Kupp. I think it could be a healthier year for Cooper. Still one of the best in the league, and I know he's on a revenge tour this year. Arguably a comeback player of the year candidate. Right after him, guy I think is going to have a huge season, Christian Kirk. I love Christian Kirk this year. Last year had a great season. That was with Calvin Ridley. They're having expectations to be a top 10 fantasy receiver, and it's been Christian Kirk all along. This dude needs to stop getting disrespected. If he's my wide receiver 3, feel really good about that. Next on the list, I got Calvin Ridley. I feel like in a new place, he could really develop, a strong relationship with Levis. That D-Hop is out and injured right now. But if he didn't do that with a better quarterback last year in the same division, why am I going to feel any better about that right now? So that's just kind of where I feel about him. Next on the list, Marquise Brown, Lad McConkey, kind of right underneath that Calvin Ridley. I think when Hollywood Brown is healthy and back in the lineup, that this is a guy that can really be a difference maker in fantasy football. Patrick Mahomes obviously can throw the ball and spread it across, a wide receiver room. I do have Marquise Brown a bit above Rashee Rice. I just think that there's a lot of off-the-field issues that we need to keep in mind. This is what he was dealing with throughout the whole offseason. If he's going to come and he's going to ball out, Rashee Rice is the guy that could get picked at a great value, but I think Hollywood Brown, for where he's going in fantasy drafts, is going to outperform his ADP. My next couple guys on the list, Chris Godwin, Tank Dell, Keenan Allen, Rashee Rice, Deontay Johnson. Don't know how to feel about all these guys, honestly. They've had their point in their careers, a little bit more on the older side with the exception of Rashee Rice. I don't feel extremely confident about Deontay Johnson in Carolina, but somebody's got to catch the ball there. Is Leggett going to be the guy over him? I don't know if I can say that just yet, honestly. So that's my questioning there, but that's where I really see, those next guys underneath, a Diggs, a Kupp, a Kirk, and even a McConkey. I feel like McConkey could end up having a decent season. But coming to the bottom half of that list, DeAndre Hopkins, Jaden Reed, Keon Coleman, Rome Odunze, T. Higgins, George Pickens. Romeo Doubs is being valued so late in most fantasy leagues. Same thing with Brian Thomas, Khalil Shakir, and Cortland Sutton. Those are all guys on the back end I'm absolutely targeting. I think could be a great value. Do I think that they're going to be wide receiver ones? No, I don't. Do I think that they can win you some weeks? I absolutely do. I just think it's important to have, the depth at the position and, the opportunity to have some upside, whether that's big name players or guys from the past that are just continuing to show out. That's the expectation with the wide receivers. So I'm going to run through the top 25 one more time. I know the wide receivers is a big list, so if you guys have some questions, hit us up on Instagram, text the show on Apple Podcast. I know you guys are setting up for your drafts. We're getting ready this weekend to have, a great turnout to help win a fantasy championship and be recognized as one of the best. Talk your shit on your friends and no punishment, of course. No, never a punishment here. Let's just make sure that's clear. But at 25, Malik Neighbors, huge year for Malik. 24, Scary Terry. 23, Zay Flowers. I think a big year for Zay. DJ Moore, Drake London. Debo and Ayuk at 19 and 20. I think, Ayuk could be a little bit lower there. Mari Cooper, MHJ, Michael Pittman, Jalen Waddle at 15. Now we're going 15 down. Jalen Waddle, Devonta Smith, Nico Collins, Puka Nacua, Chris Olave, DK Metcalf, Mike Evans at 9, and then you set it, forget it, guys, from 8 to 1. A.J. Brown, Devontae Adams, Garrett Wilson, Tyreek, C.D., Amon-Ra, Jamar Chase, and J.J. Guys, the way I like to build my team, you heard this in the running back rankings. I like to go running back heavy. I feel confident about my ability, about being able to find a wide receiver on the waiver wire later on in drafts that can catch the ball a lot. Look, there's 2 or 3 wide receivers in every single offense that get the ball, that are productive, that just need 1 week to really be a difference maker, a part of your team. So that's why I value running back over receiver. I know it's a pass-heavy league. I know there's some guys that catch the ball 10 times a game. I'd rather that running back that rushes it 20 or 25 times than a wide receiver that catches it for 10. If you guys have any fantasy questions in preparation for your drafts or leading up to the season, you guys know how to get in touch with us. Go listen to the running backs, the quarterbacks, and the tight ends. And there's more to come with fantasy football as we lead in to the start of the NFL season. It's exciting. Fantasy time is here. Let's go. You guys know the deal. Peace, love, 5 stars, nothing less.